Okay, today we're talking about the Australian housing bubble. But don't worry, we'll explain it in plain English for you guys. So we'll just get straight into it. What is a housing bubble? Or what is a bubble? A bubble is when an entire market is overvalued. To see if something is overvalued, we first need to find the actual value to begin with. So we need to talk about the principles set out by this guy, the great economist Adam Smith. Adam Smith talked about supply and demand. So Adam Smith said, when demand is higher but supply is low, prices go up. So basically, if you've got a whole heap of buyers and you've only got one seller, prices will go up. You see this down at auction. You got a whole heap of buyers at the auction and it goes way over reserve just because there's hardly any houses on the market. This is sometimes called a seller's market. Adam Smith also said when demand is low but supply is high, prices go down. So basically, the reverse. If you got every house for sale in the street, but only one buyer, that buyer can go in and out of those houses, just inspect them all, and then play the different sellers off against each other. So they'll have to drop their price to be able to attract that buyer. So this is sometimes called a buyer's market. All right. So if supply and demand determines value, how can a bubble occur where an entire market becomes overvalued? So here we've got the bubble, aka the overvalued housing market, and you've just got some factors there: market distortions, easy access to credit, myths, and mania. They all come together to create this bubble. So the market distortions. Basically, we've got restricted supply. The government in Australia tightly controls supply through planning regulations and land releases. They restrict supply heavily. If you've ever dealt with local council or local government, you know how hard it is to get things approved. We've also got market distortions of increased demand. This is done by government through first-home buyer grants, negative gearing tax incentives, lowering interest rates, and increased immigration policies. These unnatural market distortions with regard to supply and demand result in price distortions and overvaluation. These market distortions combined with the excess credit myths and mania cause the bubble. The bubble would correct to normal valuations without these distortions. If you are shocked by the current home prices, truth is you should be. They're unnatural. Easy access to credit. In Australia, credit is easily given. There was a Royal Commission into poor lending standards in 2016. Easy access to credit increases demand. Remember, demand is made up of people's wants or needs for something plus the ability to purchase it, not demand alone. It is the flow of credit which determines demand for housing in Australia, not population alone. That's important. Banks make profit off loans. The bigger the loan, the more profit for the bank. There's an incentive for banks to make the biggest loans possible. Australia has the highest household debt burden per household in the world, over $2 trillion worth of debt nationwide. That is bigger than our entire economy. The majority of this mortgage debt is mortgage debt. The banks make big profits off mortgages. They make record profits nearly every single year. Australian banks are highly profitable. I just want to reiterate that. So, whilst the banks are very profitable, homeowners are carrying a huge debt burden. And new homeowners are locked out of the housing market, sometimes permanently, become permanent renters. So, common myths during bubbles, including this one, we've got prices only ever go up. We are different here in Australia. Our market conditions are different. This will never end. Prices will go up indefinitely. This is continued on by media propaganda, which we're going to discuss right now. So realestate.com is owned by News Corp and domain.com is owned by Nine Entertainment Company. News Corp owns news.com, Foxtel, Sky News, Daily Telegraph, Herald Sun, The Courier, and many other news outlets. The most profitable part of News Corp is realestate.com. Nine Entertainment Group owns Channel 9, 2GB, 3AW, 6PR, Magic FM, the Sydney Morning Herald, the Australian Financial Review, the Age, and Domain generates significant income for the Nine Entertainment Group. Is the media providing an unbiased coverage of the real estate market? Just a question. Is the mainstream media perpetuating myths because they are profiting from a real estate bubble? Those are both good questions. Also, what we got is a mania that's occurring, and it occurs before a lot of these bubbles. So everyone's going well. It's just an appearance. Everybody's throwing caution to the wind. Everybody looks like they're really going well. But underneath the surface is a giant mountain of debt, and people accept it blindly and just keep moving forward. Okay, this happens before every bubble bursts, and it's happened, before the GFC, before stock market crashes, and before tulip mania, which was an interesting one. Just look it up. All right, so we got who are the winners? Oh yes, there's some winners. All right, some big winners. So we got the property and building developers, huge winners. These are big fish. Harry Triggerboff is the owner of Meriton, a property developer. He was Australia's richest person in 2016 and is currently ranked 6th. He is filthy rich. Okay, winners, we got the banking corporations. They're rolling in money. Okay, just to illustrate this, we're going to go to the top 10 companies in Australia. Guess what? 3rd, Commonwealth Bank. 5th, Westpac. 6th, NAB. 7th is ANZ. Right. Other winners include the mainstream media. That's because of their ties to realestate.com and domain.com. They're cash cows. They work to perpetuate myths like FOMO and, prices only ever go up. Other winners include the major political parties. They win by receiving political donations and positive media coverage. This helps them to get elected. Big boost. Once in power, the political parties push policies that restrict supply and artificially boost demand of real estate so that their banking, property developer, and media friends can keep this massive gravy train keep on chugging on. Other winners, older homeowners. They don't do this by design, but they do benefit when they sell to younger buyers with huge debt burdens. Okay, despite what older people may say, real estate is more expensive on every single metric than when they purchase their home. Fun fact, it takes as much time for a young person just to save a deposit for a new house than what it took for someone to save for an entire home in 1980. Okay, other losers. We got the losers now. The average Australian. I wish I could get ahead. Sure, it looks like I'm doing all right, but if my pay comes late, even one day, I'm doomed. That's more common than you think. And we got the average Australian, suffering under the debt burden from the banks. They just got a mountain of IUs and they're going to be raking it in. We got a reality check. What about the wealth effect? The wealth effect is entirely created by others getting larger and larger debt burdens to drive up prices. This increases your house price, which makes you eligible to access the equity. You access the equity by taking more loans out against your house. The whole thing is driven by debt. Ownership. The higher the prices, the more difficult to attain ownership, and that's the real goal. Take this for example. If you had the identical house right next door to each other, one was $250,000 and one was $1 million, you would pick the $250,000 house. That's because you're going to pay it off quicker. The debt servicing is going to be cheaper. You're going to be way ahead at the end. We've got a comment. Now that my house payments are less of a burden, I can spend more income in the real economy, which helps shop owners. Other losers, young Australians. Home ownership levels have plummeted in recent decades, especially among young people. They're really suffering. They don't want to live in your basement. The economy as a whole, that they're also losers. Resources are not provided for innovation or nation building. Okay, the Australian economy is not very diverse, exporting raw minerals, agricultural goods and education. Innovation and diversification is very low. The Australian economy is not much more diverse than a banana republic in the third world. So, how will the bubble burst? So, after years of government manipulation, interest rates are currently at 0%. But now, inflation, the cost of living, is rising globally. In the USA, it's currently at 7%. You may have noticed fuel and groceries going up. The way the government controls inflation is to increase interest rates. If if they don't end up if they don't control the interest rates, they end up with hyperinflation, which is very bad for the economy. Many economies experience this just before they collapse. A 3% rise in interest rates will increase weekly mortgage repayments on $1 million mortgage by 50%. That will leave a lot of people unable to afford to repay their mortgages. There will be a mass exodus of people running for the exits. And remember, Adam Smith said, when demand is low but supply is high, prices will go down. So when every house in the street is up for sale and you've only got one or two buyers, people are going to drop their price. The downward spiral after the initial trigger. So people can't afford the repayments to start with. People try to sell their houses. Prices fall. Then people can't access the credit because the equity's shrinking. One person's spending is another person's income, so people earn less. At some point, the banks that have been gambling that prices always go up become bankrupt. This is exactly what happened during the GFC in the USA. This is when the government uses our taxpayer dollars to bail out a company that has been pursuing a loss making strategy. I don't know many other businesses that the government will do this for. So, when will this occur? Nobody really knows, but keep an eye out for the central bank raising interest rates. That could be a possible trigger. Just keep an eye on the market. So we've got a bit of a comic strip here. There could also be more government intervention. Yes, there has been recent talk of governments going 50-50 with new homeowners to address the affordability issue. Won't that just artificially increase demand and drive prices even higher? Yes, that will be the result, but at least young people will be able to partially own a house with the government as a partner. Maybe this is what the government wants with this. Could this be what they were talking about at the Davos World Economic Forum in 2022? I remember that. Yes, you will own nothing and you will be happy, I think the catchphrase was. This policy would suit that agenda perfectly. Very interesting. You will own nothing and you will be happy. I mean, what is the alternative? Oh, I don't know. People can't afford houses because the price is too high. That would mean prices would drop because demand goes down. So now we'd get back to natural demand and supply. Oh, we can't have that. Prices can't ever go down. Yes, of course. Oh, how could I pay for the mooring fees on my yacht if prices go down and I lose my bonus? No, prices can't ever go down. What did we call it again? When we artificially stir up demand? Well, that's the wealth effect, of course. Definitely not a bubble. No, not a bubble. Definitely not a bubble. That's definitely the wealth effect. I concur. After all, as long as people keep buying houses, we've got nothing to worry about. Doesn't matter about the debt burden. So I just want to make it clear as well, I have nothing to gain by the bubble popping. This channel is not monetized. I don't make any money off it. I don't have any short positions. It's just I'm not making any money off this. I don't have any other way I'm profiting from a house price fall. I'm just a guy who can see the tide going out and a huge wave on the horizon and want to let people know there is a tsunami coming. Really, I just don't want to see the average Australian screwed over by this, and they will be. So I'm trying to raise the alarm. I hope people listen. But please don't take my word for it. Do your own research and consult with experts and make an informed decision. Please make up your own mind and don't let me sway you. I could be completely wrong. In fact, I hope I am completely wrong for all of us.